Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today I'm going to be trying out Bon Appetit's recipe for triple chocolate cookies. A while back, Rick Martinez posted a picture on his Instagram of a new chocolate chip cookie that he was working on. Well, since seeing that picture, I have been craving a super rich chocolatey cookie, but the recipe has still not been published. In the meantime, I'm digging through the BA archives to find other chocolate chip cookies to test out and see how they measure up. I do these Bon Appetit recipe tests every single Wednesday. If you like this one, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Without any further ado, let's see how this goes. As always, I'll leave a link to the recipe and ingredient quantities in the description box below. I'm starting off by breaking up my chocolate so I can melt and cool it prior to adding to the cookie dough. My preferred method for melting down chocolate is to actually microwave in 30-second intervals on 50% power for about 2 to 2.5 minutes, and the chocolate will be fully melted and ready to use. So while that chocolate cools, we can move on to prepping the dry ingredients. And this is probably one of the shortest lists of dry ingredients that I've had in quite a while, so this one comes together pretty quickly. I am using a Dutch processed cocoa here. You could certainly use a natural process if that's what you prefer. The recipe has only baking powder, so we don't need to worry about any chemical reactions occurring to provide the lift in this recipe. That's all going to come from the baking powder. Once you've got the dry ingredients sifted together, set those aside and we'll move on to the wet ingredients. So creaming together your butter and sugar is typically step one for any cookie recipe. So I've got my room temperature butter, my granulated sugar, I've got this in the bowl of my stand mixer that's fitted with my scraper beater paddle attachment. If you don't have a scraper beater, you can just stop the mixer every now and then and scrape down the sides to ensure that everything is getting evenly incorporated. So once the butter sugar mixture is starting to look really light and fluffy, we can go ahead and start adding in the eggs. Now, what's interesting about this recipe is that it's using a little bit less butter than a typical cookie recipe, and it's using one more egg than a normal cookie recipe as well. So we have less solid butter and more liquid eggs. So as you might expect, the texture here is quite loose. Now, once you've got all of the eggs incorporated, we're gonna beat this on high speed for 5 minutes. And so you can see that the mixture becomes super light and pale. It almost looks like a pancake batter or like a really runny icing. And to this, we're adding in the melted chocolate. So this is why it's super important that that melted chocolate is at room temperature. If it's even the slightest bit warm, it's going to take your already runny eggs and butter mixture and just turn it into soup. So it's important that that melted chocolate is down to room temperature. Now, once we've got all the ingredients in the bowl, we're mixing again to get everything evenly incorporated. If you need to stop and scrape, by all means, go ahead and do that before we get the dry ingredients in there. Now, this recipe is being very gentle because we're just folding the dry ingredients through. So we don't want to overwork the dry ingredients because that's going to develop that gluten protein, which will give us kind of a tougher cookie. So once you've got those chocolate chips evenly incorporated, we can go on to portioning out the cookies. So this is a 1/4 cup portion scoop that I'm using. If you wanted to do a smaller cookie, that's completely fine. You're just going to need to reduce your bake time so that you avoid over baking. So my large cookies were in the middle of my oven. I did not rotate them during the baking process, and they were done after 15 minutes, and they looked nice and crackly on the top when I removed them. And you want to let these cool completely on the baking tray before removing. All right, so the triple chocolate cookies are out of the oven. I've let them cool completely, and the end result is pretty nice looking. So I like that the surface here is a little bit cracky and kind of reminds me of like a brownie skin. So I'm pretty into that. The size of the cookie is nice. This is definitely a bigger cookie than I would typically make. And the profile is attractive. It's got a nice thickness to it, so it seems like it should be kind of chewy and nice inside. So I'm excited to break it open and see. All right, so really nice inside here, maybe slightly underdone right in the middle, which is kind of the sweet spot for a cookie in my opinion. So let's see how this tastes. Oh my gosh. This is so dense, so rich and so chocolatey. Everything about this is saying I'm a brownie, except for its shape. So this is a little bit chewy inside, the way a brownie is. It's got that great kind of crispy brownie skin happening all the way around the outside. And then the chocolate level here is out of this world. It's super rich and indulgent. I mean, I know it's a triple chocolate cookie, but this is absolutely wild. So I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give me a big thumbs up and click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.